Welcome back to the show, folks. If you're serious about real estate, wealth building, and creating a life of purpose, you're in the right place. Today, I have the privilege of sitting down with one of the most respected voices in the real estate and entrepreneurship world, Patrick Francey. As the CEO of the Real Estate Investment Network, a multi-business owner, a renowned speaker, and the host of the Everyday Millionaire podcast, Patrick has spent over 40 years guiding individuals toward financial success and personal development. What makes Patrick stand out the most isn't just his expertise in real estate, but his holistic approach to wealth, success, and well-being. He believes that building a financial freedom isn't just about money, but about creating a meaningful life by design. Today, we're going to dive deep into how Canadian investors can thrive in today's market, the biggest opportunities we're seeing, and the insights to Patrick Francey's mind and habits that are all required to build long-lasting wealth. Patrick, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for the intro. I sound really interesting. I hope I can pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, we're all super excited, I'm myself included, to have you on the show. I've been thinking about it all day, to be honest. And I just wanted to start off, Patrick, like you've spent decades guiding investors, entrepreneurs. What's one thing that people don't know about Patrick Francey?
Oh, there's a story. I'll share a quick story with you. So again, I've been in business 40 years and over 40 years. And one of the businesses I own is called Pro Skate. It's based in Edmonton, Alberta. And that was really, it's there today. I got a great team of people. It's in Alberta. I'm primarily in British Columbia. It's kind of standalone and has been since 2005. I got a great team of people there. Now, what Pro Skate is it caters to a competitive ice skating, both hockey and figure skating. So very relatively high end. I mean, we service all clients, but we have a reputation for working with Olympic and world-class athletes, NHL, etc. So the question you just asked me, what would surprise people that they don't know about me, or whatever that frame, however exactly you framed it. End of the day is I own a skate shop in Edmonton, which is, of course, one of the most hockey-centric cities in the country. And I don't play hockey. I don't skate. So there you go.
Love it. How did you get into something like that? Is that like, how did you start that?
Well, I think that was kind of my entrepreneurial accident, and it's a long story, but it's kind of relevant, and I won't share it all, but it's relevant to this, is that back in the 80s, we had just gone through a huge transition in Alberta in the oil and gas sector. Interestingly enough, who was at the helm of our country politically was Pierre Elliott Trudeau. And he introduced what was called back then the National Energy Program. And that National Energy Program shut down shut down Alberta, really impacted it hard. I was in the oil industry at the time. In 1977, my first real job, full time, I was in the oil industry. And so I inevitably was laid off. And, unemployment, by the way, spiked to about 14% in Alberta at that time.
Wow.
So I was without a job, but I had saved some money and I wasn't really panicked about it. And I started hanging out with a friend who owned Pro Skate back then. And we went through this transition and I ended up buying the business from him. I worked with him. I wasn't doing anything. I was helping him out. And so that's really what it was. There was no point in looking for a job, although we were throwing applications everywhere just to try and find work. But when unemployment was bumping 12, 14%, it's big. Like there's hardly any jobs and there's lots of qualified people. Long story short, that set me on my entrepreneurial journey because I went to work for him. And the next thing you know, through the series of events that occurred, I ended up buying the business from him, and I own it to this day.
Super interesting. So you actually bought that before you started investing in real estate? Is that correct? Like that was
exactly. That is, and that was what was interesting about that. So as I operated that business, I was the technician. I was in it. I was doing all the things that we do and developing specialized fitting techniques and performance. We were really the skate fit for performance store. We were catering to that competitive industry, all the rest of it. And the store was doing quite well. And, in about 1998, I was really kind of looking at the business and where am I going? What am I doing? But one of the things that I did, which I guess paid off, was I was I had lots of friends who were entrepreneurs, and some of them were very, very successful. And, I thought, well, if I'm going to model myself, after anybody, why don't I look at this group of people that I know? But my observation was that in spite or regardless of how successful their businesses were, or at the time and still are to this day, but all of them invested in real estate. They all owned real estate. They didn't just live off, the business. They said, okay, well, and what I learned from that is that they're planning for their future. And one of them said to me, they were, well, Patrick, at the end of the day, you at some point in your life, you're going to say, well, I'm going to exit my business, and you're going to sell it, or you're going to do something, but there's no guarantees. And so what you need to consider is, how are you building assets? How are you kind of looking into the future and whatever retirement might look for you? And it's certainly different today than it was back then. But my point is that that's when I got into real estate in 2000. Was when I bought my first piece of real estate, when I became a member of the RAIN community and was listening to a guy by the name of Tim Johnson, who is really one of the original founders of the Real Estate Investment Network. Don R. Campbell, who eventually bought the business from Tim Johnson. That's who I got to know, and I knew both Tim Johnson and Don Campbell. And yeah, so anyways, that was my journey, and I started investing in real estate in Alberta in 2000, and that's what it was. It was taking my business profits and
Got it.
actually reinvesting them.
Got it. Got it. And like what did you buy in 2000, and how has that changed? Like, are you still investing in the same asset class you did in 2000 as you are in 2025?
Well, no, it all changed over the years, Zach. When you think about those times, we certainly hear enough about it, property prices. I'll give you an example. I could buy a bungalow for like a 1,100 square foot bungalow in a decent part of town, and which I did, as a matter of fact. And I paid $135,000 for that house. It was the whole house. It had no
Wow.
basement suite in it. But at that time, I was able to get $1,450 a month rent. And so it all made sense to do. You could pull that off, but of course that all changed over the years, and we got smarter, and how can we increase cash flow even more? And then you realize, oh, having a suited unit made sense. For me, that then went into duplexes and fourplexes, and ultimately multifamily and light industrial. So it evolved a lot, and it changed a lot. I haven't really been, I'm 66 years old. So for me, growing my portfolio is not my focus right now. Most of my real estate that I own, and I did exit a lot of my real estate with a partner that we owned. I know this is sound a little weird, but I think it was around 100 doors that we owned collectively together and I exited. He bought me out. He's a joint venture partner. He bought me out in 2021. I exited a bunch of the doors. I still have a lot of real estate, but most of it's, my loan to value is, some of it's paid for, some of it is just a few $1,000s of mortgages. And I just have never really tapped into the equity in it. I haven't needed to, because I
Yeah.
live off my businesses. So.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And you're at the point of your life where the growth isn't necessarily like forefront of your focus.
Listen, right. My focus right now is being a contribution, doing what I love to do, giving back, and maintaining my existing portfolio. And for Stephanie, my wife, and I, it's about our lifestyle, and we love our lifestyle, and so we love the businesses that we have. We love what we do, and so for me, not even it's just having fun doing what I'm doing, being a contribution, and being able to bring, 40 years of experience and business wisdom and real estate wisdom to, guys like you, and sharing with your audience.
Super, super insightful. You're definitely in the right place. And for those investors that are looking to kind of take advantage right now in Canada and grow their portfolio, like, are you seeing any opportunities that are kind of ripe for the taking for, growth-minded Canadian investors?
Well, I think there's a few parts to that question, and it's a great question, but it's an interesting thought process given what's going on in 2025, the economic headwinds that not just Canada but even global macro that we're facing. There's a lot of FUD, the fear, the uncertainty, the doubt, and it's always interesting through the boom cycles of real estate, which we're all familiar with. When the cycle's booming, everybody seems to be getting rich. Everybody's, excuse me, everybody's a real estate genius, and it's all really cool. And then what happens is a lot of people are engaging in strategies they don't understand, and pre-built condos in Toronto and Vancouver are a perfect example of that. We've always, within the RAIN community, we've really kind of said, do not do pre-construction. If you do, really know what you're getting into, have a plan, have an exit strategy. And what's happening right now in the Toronto market meltdown, or in a lesser degree, but just as bad as Vancouver. But the point of it is that they weren't really investing; they were speculating, and some would
Mhm.
arguably say gambling. So when we see these downturns in a real estate market, it really pushes people to the sidelines. But it's interesting psychology because this is where the opportunities exist. This is where there are motivated vendors. This is where for the sophisticated or the savvy investor who's got some education, this is where they have an opportunity to solve somebody else's problem. And I want to stress here, this is in no way, shape, or form taking advantage of anybody. People make decisions, they get themselves into trouble, and they just want out of that trouble, which makes them motivated, which gives a sophisticated investor who's a little bit less adverse to risk to say, okay, I can look at this property and this was what makes sense for me. I will do a deal with you based on here. And then you orchestrate the deal. So my point of it is that it's through the real estate slump or recovery cycle where the best times to buy are, but psychologically, it is really hard. You have to be courageous. You have to shift your mindset. You have to make sure you're surrounded by the right group of people that understand what it is that is happening in the real estate market. So, a bit of a long answer to your question, but
No.
right now is huge opportunities. The challenge people face is they cannot wrap their mind around what's going on. It's so emotional. And when we start making emotional investment decisions, whether to invest, okay, through a boom cycle, everybody's a genius,
Yep.
or to not invest, oh, it's too scary out there. It's driven by emotion instead of data and a thought process, a thesis. So I'll ask you this question, Zach. I automatically put my coach hat on, and I apologize for that. But
That's
what we
great.
have to consider is right now the headlines are ugly. It doesn't matter where you turn, interest rates, bond yields, melting down markets, more
Yep.
listings, not enough cash flow, yada, yada, the whole story, right? So that's what's happening today. We're not investing in real estate for today. We have to step back and ask ourselves this question. Okay, so if I'm going to invest, I'll use the Edmonton market right now as an example. It's
Okay.
kind of booming, right? But then I can look into a market in, I don't know, I'll say Kelowna, British Columbia. Pretty soft, tough to get deals, tough to cash flow, really hard right now. So emotionally, it's like, no, this is too scary. I have to be able to look down 5 years down the road. And I ask myself this question because we're not investing in real estate for today.
Hmm.
We're investing in real estate for the future. So when I look 5 years down the road, I ask myself the question, what's happening in Alberta? What's happening specifically in Edmonton? What's happening in British Columbia? What's happening specifically in Kelowna? Where do I see things in 5 years from now? And where can I enter the game today that sets the trajectory for a positive result 5 years from now? So that means, what is my strategy? What's my demographic? What's the fundamentals that are driving that market? And we take the emotion as much as we can out of it, or we're aware of it so that it doesn't drive our decisions. And then we create a thesis based on the data. So what I try and do and encourage investors to do, and business owners, doesn't matter. I would have the same conversation with an entrepreneur that's making widgets. It doesn't really matter in that regard. We have to be pragmatic. We have to be thoughtful and create a thesis, execute against the thesis. In other words, what are you working backwards from? And then be prepared to change it, to adjust it, to shift it should something happen. And that takes planning.
Yeah, no kidding. And just unpacking what you said, you think like I think you called it FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Do you think that's like the number one thing holding investors back right now from taking action?
100%. And arguably I understand it, and I really get it. These are tough decisions for anybody to make
Hmm.
because what you're operating on top of. We got a new president that we're going to be. We don't. North America, as in the U.S., has got a new president. They're our biggest trading partners. We're at the effect of what's going on for him. He's a little bit like he loves throwing. He likes mixing it up. Like he throws a bomb in the room and this kind of smiles and sees all the confusion going on. Is there tariffs? Is there no tariffs? We're going through a time where arguably we don't really have a government. We got a prime minister that quit but didn't quit. We've got a unelected Carney coming in going, well, I'm going to be the next guy, but he's not even a liberal leader yet. Like it's really uncertain and confusing.
Yeah.
So sometimes it pays, I'm not suggesting that people jump in at this time. What I'm suggesting is that it's not the time to disconnect from the real estate market. It's not the time to disconnect from what's going on fundamentally within the economics, but it's a time to stay engaged and pay attention. You have time to write offers. They can be conditional. They can be creative. They can be lowball, go in solving problems. This is a different approach within the economic conditions that we're actually in today.
Makes sense. And for those investors that are, wanting to re-engage, reconnect with the market, like what type of advice or things would you recommend for them to do to kind of,
Well,
hack
the real
that?
estate, Rain, that you're familiar with as well, is that real estate investment network. We've been around 30 years. And so we've been through different cycles. And certainly we haven't been through a specific kind of economic conditions that we're facing now. But I'll tell you this, is that the economic conditions have changed and the way real estate is going to operate has changed forever. Like there is a fundamental issue that's happening global macro. Real estate is at the effect of that. And here's the big message for people. As much as we think real estate is going to go up or down, what is happening without question is our dollar is being devalued. And not just Canadian dollar, all fiat currency. It's measured against the US. Arguably, the US may lose reserve currency status. My point is this. So I'll give you a clear example. 100 years ago, $100, if you take that $100, extrapolate that same in terms of buying power, your is devalued to $5.
Hmm.
So our money is becoming fiat currency is becoming. So as much as we think our real estate prices are going up, they're just really not. What's happening is our currency is being devalued. Quantitative easing, which really kicked into high gear, arguably in the 80s, but we won't get into that, but really kicked into gear through the great financial crisis, 07, 08. They started printing money. Quantitative easing became the thing to do. And then, of course, when COVID hit, same thing happened, printing money. So they flood the market with dollars, which then devalues the dollars, more dollars to buy fewer goods, and we have inflation. Inflation is not going away. As a matter of fact, I think 2025 will see much more of it. So will the real estate market go up and down a little bit? 100%. But when we look 5, 7, 10 years down the road, which is why we invest in real estate, this is as much about wealth preservation as it is about making money in the context of real estate prices going up. I'll go one level further, and that is if you have $100,000 in the bank today, let's just say that, understand that your $100,000 buying power today, by the end of 2025, your actual buying power will be about 85,000 at best.
Yeah.
So
Same.
you're sitting on fiat currency and it's losing its buying power. So we all know, we've heard the phrase, the rich get richer. Why? Because they own assets. And I'll give you another stat, Zach, that might help your audience as well to kind of relate to this. We've all heard the phrase, follow the money. So the top 5% income earners are parking their cash in real estate. They're doing it vis-a-vis private REITs, real estate investment trusts, because they know that real estate is a hard asset that they want to own, but they don't want the in the trenches, do it yourself way of being that many of your listeners probably do. The point is that follow the money. They're wealthy because they know that holding hard assets, stores of value, real estate being one of them, is in fact a proven strategy. And so they're taking their money and taking it out of risk assets, putting it into hard assets, risk off assets such as real estate.
Patrick, you have such an amazing perspective, like as I think I'm guilty and many investors are when we're getting into real estate, we're all looking like, is it appreciating? Is it depreciating? How's that look? What's the cash flow? But to kind of pull a step back and just think about, you're almost protecting yourself against inflation by, not having fiat currency in your bank account and owning a hard asset and really looking at the bigger picture. Like who cares what happens in the next 1-2 years? We're looking at 5, 7, 10 years, 20 years in some cases.
Yeah. Let me share, I'll share one more story with you, Zach. I think it really, I've shared it many times and it always seems to land well for people, but let me share this story with you. So, you're a young man and your great grandfather was really committed to family and legacy. And he worked really hard, in the early, like 1920 or 1930, whatever the dates are. That really doesn't matter. It's the context of the story. And he worked really, really hard. And one day he was able to actually afford to buy an ounce of gold. And he paid $30 for that ounce of gold, an astronomical amount of money at that time. $30 would be 10 trips from your car to your house to unload groceries. That's the buying power. Remember, $100 back then, $5 today. Like you got to understand, like that was a lot of money, $30 worth of piece of gold. And he said to your great grandmother, he said, I'm going to put this in this little box and this is going to go on to our children. And that was really great. And then they worked hard and they paid for their house. And their house at the time was $6,200. And he paid that house off because he worked hard. And he put the title in the box. He goes, we're going to keep this house. We're going to pass it on to our family. This is going to go to our great grandchildren. And then he continued to work really hard. And then one day he got an odd job, paid him really well. He had an extra $20. He threw it in the box. And he goes, this is all going to go to our future children, grandchildren, great grandchildren. Well, Zach, you sit today and you have that box. You know that in the early 1900s, 1920, 1930, that ounce of gold, what an ounce of gold would do, here's how the reputation of gold was. It will buy you a fine suit, a wonderful dinner, and a night in a hotel. Okay, that's what that ounce of gold would do back then. The house that they paid, $6,000-ish for. Of course, we know about real estate. Well, you open up that box today. Do you know what an ounce of gold is worth today, Zach? Real money. It's considered real money. Gold is considered real money, the only true real money. Okay,
like 2,000 to 3,000 maybe per ounce. I'm not sure.
Okay, $4,100
4,100
Canadian, $2,800 US, approximately. So today, that ounce of gold will still buy you a fine suit, a wonderful dinner, and a night in a beautiful hotel. We agree?
Yep.
$6,100 for that house. Oh, he owned it just outside of Vancouver proper. Oh, that house is now worth $1.2 million, even if it's a teardown. The $20 will buy you a Starbucks. You understand?
I understand. That's good. That's a good story.
So we have to look at why we invest in real estate and understand that our inspiration, our motivation, our why is about wealth preservation, realizing that our fiat currency is being devalued and that as much as we'll have pullbacks, it'll chop sideways. Buy a piece of real estate, make sure it cash flows, make sure the location is great, make sure you maintain it and you look after that asset, and it will pay you dearly into the future. But people are in a world where they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram, they're on all the social media. Everybody's getting rich quick. Oh my gosh, look at Zach, he's a zillionaire. And it's all these moments in time that are being captured, and it looks like we can get rich quick. And the reality of it is, very few, very few, very limited times, I can tell you, over this many years to get rich quick. You may hit the odd home run, be happy, but it's
Hmm.
just grind away.
Well, it's definitely a long-term game. I love that story. We're gonna clip that for sure. So you just mentioned there when you were talking to me about like your why. So how are investors like how can you teach investors to, maybe not just focus on the numbers all the time, but how are they able to design a life with purpose? Like how have you done that, Francey?
Well, that's an interesting question. There's two parts to it. Over the years, so Rain has been teaching. Literally, we've had, I don't know, 200,000 people through our programs over the past 30 years. And so we teach the system, we teach the process, and it really hasn't changed. I mean, fundamentally, it stays the same with tweaks given what's going on currently and strategically, does it make sense, and all the rest of that stuff that we teach. But why is it? We asked ourselves, and I asked myself, how is it that I can look at an audience of, hundreds of people, work one-on-one, one-on-many, and we teach this program, we get to know our community and our clients, and some of them are just crushing it. I mean, they're building their portfolios, they're doing cash flow, they're doing exceptionally well, they're following the system, following the process, they're doing all their stuff, and they're really doing well. And then there's those individuals who literally do nothing, or they screw it up because they want to shortcut it. And it's like, well, what is that all about? The point of that little kind of prelude is that it speaks to the fundamental that it's about mindset. The how to invest in real estate isn't really that hard. You and I can sit down and we can talk about, well, what's your strategy? Buy and hold. Okay, well, let's compare buy and hold notes. And they're almost going to be identical. You're going to have some nuances. You're going to have some little tips and tricks that you've learned along the way. But ultimately, the system is the same. But what's the difference between you and somebody who has exactly the same system but doesn't do anything with it? It's mindset. So when we start to add this, well, what is the reason that you're doing it? Ultimately, we know that if you're just chasing money, it's going to fall away. There's got to be a part of it that you got to have fun doing it. You got to want it. You got to look at it and go, I don't care. It's hard work, but I know that hard work, there's an outcome in the future. I can actually be patient and work into the future state. That's the first part of it.
Hmm.
And it's never about, and you know this one, Zach, it's not about what you do. It's about who you need to become to achieve what it is that you want to achieve. So this is always a development into, are you being the best version of yourself? Are you surrounding yourself with the right people? Are you into conversations that are supporting you? Do you have people that'll call you on your bullshit and when you're making excuses? Do you have people that are going to nudge you, push you, who believe in you when you
Hmm.
don't believe in yourself? This is a mindset game because the how-tos, listen, we've been coaching and teaching that stuff for years, and it doesn't really change too much. I mean, adjustments, but
Yeah.
ultimately, it's about who you need to become to achieve the goal.
Got it. What strategies are you using like personally, Patrick, for your mindset and your habits and who do you need to become? Like what have you
Well,
done with that?
I'll share a couple of insights for you. So first and foremost, I mean, Stephanie and I, my wife Stephanie is an Olympic and world-class mental performance coach. That's the game that she plays, and she does it with business owners. She does it with athletes, and she's done that for 25 years. And she's, I think, about to go to her fourth Olympics, and that's so it's really in our DNA. So go back to what we talked about. Purpose. We know our purpose. Our purpose, what lights us up, is to be a contribution. Our purpose is to support others in being successful. If I'm coaching somebody or working with a group of people, and I, just stepping into a whole new realm of working with CEOs of business, and if I can be a contribution and they are successful or they gain or are more successful by following my guidance or me supporting them, then to me, that's a home run. Your success, it's a little hokey sounds, I think, to some people, but ultimately that really lights us up. So we want to be a contribution. We want to have, and when you are, there's a fundamental need of people to have significance. And that doesn't mean to elevate yourself, but to be, you want to make a difference. You want to be meaningful to others. And when you can be in that space, that really you start to understand your purpose. Mine, and I know my purpose is, I use the tagline for myself personally and within who I am in terms of my purpose is to be your greatest self and live your best life. And when you work backwards from that, I'm only ever having conversations. When I'm coming into this conversation with you, I want to show up to be my best self. I want to show up to support you in having a great show and supporting your clients. And I want the listeners to get a lot out of this so that I can really, if they can take away something, and I may
Hmm.
never hear about it, but ultimately that's what drives me to even be a guest on a podcast like this.
Amazing. And what about for those like investors or CEOs, entrepreneurs that might be like listening to this? They might be juggling lots of different projects, and honestly, like they might not be clear on their purpose, and they might be feeling like burnt out. I know
Mhm.
that's been going on like insane, like especially 2024. There was a lot of kind of that burnt out mentality. Like, what type of you know advice would you give to them?
There's a fundamental that we know, and that is that when you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, when you put yourself into an environment where you have people of like mind that are, sharing similar goals that they have, then you get to share in experiences. You get to share in, mistakes made. So the point of it is that the worst thing you can do, and this is what happens, and I've been through this, by the way. I'm sharing with you my own experience, is that when you're going through difficult times, and I've gone through difficult times many, many times. I've had lots of financial hits, but if you put yourself in the worst thing you can do is try and go it alone. The worst thing you can do is not share what you're going through. So whether you find a good friend, whether you bring in a coach, whether you reach out to somebody that you can trust to have a conversation with and getting into it so that you're actually not having the reoccurring conversation in your head,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just a loop. And your listener will know this, your listeners will know this, you'll know this, is that when we are facing these challenges, it's a never ending loop of just the same conversation over and over again. And it's a fundamental, the one technique, and most people know it, they don't necessarily do it. The way our brain fires is we're going to continue to have that conversation with ourselves. The hack, really basic, journal it, write it down. And you go, well, what's the point? Here's how our brains work, Zach. When you write something down, your brain goes, oh, cool. I don't have to remember that anymore. And it will often, when you get into the practice, it releases these conversations, frees up capacity. It doesn't mean your brain gets quieter. It just means, because we all got monkey brain, we all got chatter going on all the time. What we want to do is get rid of the loop of doom, gloom, bad news, beat yourself up. I'm not smart enough. I fucked up. I make mistakes. Why did I do that? Like, you got to get that shit out of your head, get it out on paper, and your brain will, over time, will let that stuff go. It frees up room for creative ideas to show up, for different thoughts to show up. And it's a really critical part of what you're doing. So people who are not, so go back to, I know I got off track there in terms of your question, but you have to get outside guidance if you're not clear on your purpose, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling frustrated, if you're just feeling stuck. You can't handle this stuff on your own. You need to get into a community. You need to surround yourself with, and I encourage people, be the dumbest person in the room. It's the best place to be. Surround yourself with really smart people. And, that was a tough one for me. I always seemed to end up feeling like I needed to be, or maybe I even was the smartest person in the room. No, I want to surround myself with people that are way smarter than me and call me on my bullshit. And my bullshit is the stories I'm telling myself.
That's incredible. And like, I know you're mentioning Stephanie a few times, so just to kind of bring her in, and you mentioned just there in your answer, you've been through it. I don't even know how many real estate cycles, but
Yeah.
a lot of ups and downs. Like how are you able to, keep that relationship like strong with Stephanie, like through those times? Like,
Well, we have 2024. I mean, we try and create some themes for ourselves. In 2024, we in one of my meditations, I came to clarity equals velocity. It was just a message that showed up for me. And we then made 2024, the theme was clarity equals velocity. And actually, I'll carry that theme forward as part of our underlying work always. But Stephanie and I have learned over the years, number one is within our relationship, aside from the fact that we love each other and she's my wife and we've been together over 30 years and all the rest of it, we had really a lot of clarity in our relationship. There was rules that we had in the relationship. She had deal breakers, I don't know what it was, fool around on me or become an alcoholic. I don't know. I don't even know what they are anymore. It doesn't matter, because one of the most important rules that we had was that we were never mean. Listen, people who know us hear us argue and debate and fight, and we do all those things. Our friends that are close to us go, you guys, if anybody else saw this, they would swear you're going to get a divorce tomorrow. But they know that that's not who we are. But we debate, and we can be really in each other's face in terms of a debate, but we're never mean. And there's not even a thought process about throwing a critical personal shot across the bow. We just don't do that stuff. Like, it's not, we just don't.
Mm-hmm.
And those are rules that we just have that much respect for each other. And like, we both know when we go through our shit and we need the other person to call us on it. That is the power in a great relationship, is knowing that leaving is not an option. Like, breaking up is not an option. We're going to get through whatever drama that's in front of us. Believe me, I have fucked up more times than you can count in terms of what we do in business and all the things that guys do that are A-type personalities like myself. And she's that way too, by the way. But the point is that we always know that it didn't come from a place of being irresponsible. It didn't come from a place of being self-serving. It was a risk that I took, for example. So yeah, she can be frustrated. Yeah, she can be angry with me in the moment, but it doesn't change the fact that we're in this together.
Yeah,
And these are things that are going to happen in life. So we have that. And so the clarity equals velocity part of it is we're always seeking clarity with each other.
got it.
And that comes from communication.
Awesome. And so, like when you're going through these ups and downs and you're trying to, balance the business, balance your personal growth, and balance the marriage, is it really coming down to just being clear and, having the communication lines?
It's communication. It's understanding that the minute you're playing, if you're playing the blame game, the blame and complain game, you're going to lose. So, like I say, we're like any couple. We bicker, we fight back and forth, and we do all the things that couples do, but we love each other deeply and we just do normal stuff, right? This
Mm-hmm.
isn't, this doesn't set the trajectory of our relationship, but we are always looking and working through to get clear. And that's really ultimately it. And so we work together really well in that regard. And certainly she has a way of operating that is different than mine, by the way.
Yeah.
Mine's right, hers is wrong. No, that is true. So, and we don't, at the end of the day, we just work through stuff and communicate. And, there's a phrase that Stephen Covey used, I'm sure you're familiar with it, which was seek first to understand and then to be understood. And if people would just adopt that, don't be reactive, ask questions, be curious, dig a little deeper, you know, develop the skill to be curious, to be thoughtful, to look at it from the other person's perspective. When we shift our perspective, our perception changes. And it's so, one of my favorite quotes by Wayne Dyer is, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And in relationship, in business, with Stephanie and I, it's kind of, I have to reel myself in because I can be triggered by certain things the same as anybody. I'm a mere mortal. I don't, I'm not any smarter, any better than anybody else, but I have trained myself. I have disciplined myself to listen and to investigate so that, yeah, I can be triggered. Things can piss me off in the moment, but I'm also not too reactive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually known for not being reactive. So that came from where I was extremely reactive when I was younger
Yeah.
and hadn't been on this journey to just being now is that, don't sweat the small stuff and it's all small stuff.
Love it. Love it. It really comes down to like, not going to say it as good as you, but almost being like an active listener and, validating what the other person is feeling and trying to understand them, right? Before
Hmm.
you kind of flip that. So I wanted to ask you straight up, Francey, like you've been through lots of ups and downs, challenges. Like, what do you think the biggest challenge like you've had and how did you actually like face that and overcome it and get through it?
I don't know if I could put my finger on a single challenge. I think that where I've adopted over the years is that, first off, you have to get a little bit out there in terms of your thinking. And, as you explore meditation, as you explore and understand consciousness, as you explore universal law, one of the things that here's some things that I have come to be kind of just I know when I am facing my most and biggest financial uncertainty, I
Hmm.
know that I'm just about to break through to something bigger and what's next. When I feel the most weighed down financially, is I know there's a breakthrough coming. Now, it's taken me a lot of years to come to that realization, but it is consistently that way. And the first time I realized that for me was many years ago. I was young and I had, somebody vandalized my car and they stole four tires, and it was like at the time, it was like whatever, $200 a tire, with rims back then. But it was a lot of money. And I was going, I don't have that money. How am I going to pull this off? And I managed to scrape the money together and it was very stressful. And I had to, rob Peter to pay Paul. And it was this still new in business. It was just so stressful. And what happened next was a whole new windfall came in, a whole new opportunity. And I didn't really recognize it back then, but then I've had that scenario repeat itself, different scenarios, but same kind of thing. And then the next thing you know, something else showed up. Oh, when I started to put that all together, when I reflected on it, I realized that every time I felt that pressure, there was a breakthrough.
Hmm.
And so now I've just come to trust it. The only difference is now is I can't have an expectation of when it's going to happen. So
Yeah.
it doesn't happen as quick as I would like it to, but it always happens. So this goes back to the phrase that many are familiar with, which is the universe is not happening to me. These things are not happening to me. They're happening for me. And
Hmm.
that is a shift of view that's so important that whatever's coming your way is just there to make you stronger. That's how you build resilience. Do you know why I'm a savvy business guy now, this many years later?
Why is
Because
that?
I faced the challenges and I went through them. I put my shoulder into it. I did what I needed to do to get through it. But what it did was it made me smarter. It made me stronger. The next time something happened, it was like, oh, I've been in this space before. I've had this kind of pressure before. No problem. You're a speaker. First time you were on stage, oh my gosh, it's so much pressure. But you force yourself, you get through it, you hide the nerves, you prepare, you do all the things that you do. Well, do that a few times, and all of a sudden you're good at it. Well,
Hmm.
it's the same thing with facing challenges. You go through some challenges and you know how to face those challenges differently. You know how to hold space, whether it be an HR issue or an operations issue or a financial issue or a banking issue. These are the things that make you stronger. So we look at challenges as a negative because we live into the story that life should be easy. And we think it should be easy because everybody on social media has got it figured out and we don't. Like we must be stupid. Everybody else is making millions yesterday and we're still trying to figure out how to make our first 100 grand. Like how smart are we? And we get into these jags that we tell ourselves that it should be easy. It's not. You
Hmm.
go to the gym and in order to get stronger, you lift heavier weight. You Nobody else is doing your push-ups. You want to get stronger, you go do your push-ups. It's the same in business. It's the same in real estate. In all aspects of life, go do your push-ups. Don't look at a challenge as a pain in the ass, although I do. Mentally, I do. I go, why am I having to deal with this shit? But ultimately, all of this is what makes you better, stronger, more capable, and helps you develop the competency and the skill set to pull what's off next. That's how it is. I don't look at somebody who's all, you talk to somebody who's got any degree of success. And on my podcast, on the Everyday Millionaire podcast, I can share dozens of stories of guys. I just had a podcast with a guy in a garage door business, believe it or not, in the US. He's going to do $300 million in 2025. He just came off a $270 million a year, 700 staff, 25 states, servicing garage doors. Well, listen to a guy, he's 45 years old. Listen to that guy, and you go, or you look at him and he's all successful and he's got it all figured out. Get into a conversation with him and you realize just how hard he had to work, the challenges he's had to face with partners, with money, with expansion, the mistakes he made. Pretty inspiring story, to be honest with you.
Wow. Powerful answer. And I think we're all going to go check that episode out. You'll have to share it later. So like, do you think it's really like kind of just, I guess, when we make the commitment to, accomplish that big goal, and then we run up with these stressful things and challenges, and you're saying that the breakthrough is always like on the other side of that? Like, is that just how, like, I guess life works then, eh? It's just like the universe
It
is
is.
constantly testing us.
It has to. It has to, and not if you're a 9 to 5, or if you're going to go to work and your role is, I'm going to be at work at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m. and I'm going to work at 5. I'm going to punch the clock. Some people are built for that. They're not built. Not everybody's built to be an entrepreneur. That's just the truth. There are people who work hard and they're happy to go to work and come home at 5 o'clock and, buy a snowmobile or buy a recreation or watch TV. They're just built that way. But they're not wrong for that. For those who really want to achieve something, they have to realize that you are going to be challenged, and that to be successful in real estate, to be successful as an entrepreneur, even in a career, in a corporate structure, you have to build a resilience. You have to have, you have to be able to face adversity and deal with it and train yourself to deal with it. Now, I'll share a quick hack with you that is, that I've developed. This is just for myself, and I don't know that it's unique. I haven't. I mean, the idea was inspired somewhere, but my point is that, so at 65 years old, I looked at it. I come off COVID. I put on a little weight. I've trained all my life. I've been, physical fitness and health has always been one of my top priorities. And when we talk about health as a high value for me, and I'm talking about my physical health, my mental health, emotional, spiritual health, but I'm also talking about my financial health, my relational health. That's how I hold the space called health.
Okay.
My point is this, is that when I was looking at the physical health, that I was going to let myself put on weight, blah, blah, blah. And I'd really not been true to who I am, which is I have worked out for 35 years for sure, regularly training. I did half marathons, I lifted weights, I did all of the stuff to stay strong. My point is I gradually let myself through the whole lockdowns digress. I went to an event. I actually went to a Patrick Bet-David event in Florida. It was fantastic. And it was really inspirational for me because I came away and I went, I need to reset my bar. And one of the hacks that I learned was at 65 years old, I'm going, well, what's my benchmark? So, and who do I need to become? Here's my question to myself. Who do I want to be at 70? So Zach, how old are you now?
33.
33. So ask yourself, who do you want to be at 40? Who do you want to be in 5 years from now? Okay. So ask yourself, who do I need to become to achieve the goal that I have? And what's my benchmark? So I looked at RFK Jr. So Kennedy Jr., if you follow him, when I started, he's just a little bit older than I am, but I'm looking at RFK. And if you follow Kennedy Jr., RFK, Robert Kennedy Jr., he's now 70, cranks off a dozen pull-ups, cranks off 50 push-ups. He's smart, he's engaged, he's still very active. Of course, he's doing what he's doing in the US under Trump. And I looked at him and I say, look at what are the characteristics of somebody like that I admire? What is their habits? What is their profile? How are they? And so I just list all the things that I admired about RFK. And I admired his physical fitness. I admired how engaged he was still at 70 years old, working his ass off, how articulate he was, how smart he was. And I just list all those things. And I go, that's my to-do list. So now when I don't want to work out, when I'm whining because it's too hard, I go, what would RFK do?
Hmm.
Oh, that brings me back to center.
Yeah,
Simple hack. And I quit
that's
drinking, by the way. That was another thing I did.
wow. That's amazing. I was actually taking a bunch of notes as you were talking that through. So I got some homework for myself. Also, I quit drinking too. It's been like 4 months now, 6 months now. So I think it's that's probably another podcast. But
I have no
feel more,
regrets,
yeah, feel more
you know.
clear now than ever.
And I want to make it really simple. Do you know why I quit drinking?
No.
Because I wanted to bring my weight down, bring my body fat back down. I like to eat, and I like to eat more than I like to drink. So I'm going, why do I want to drink my calories? It doesn't make me feel any better. It doesn't fill me up. And I don't like it that much. Like I enjoy a glass of wine, I enjoy a shot of rye, whatever. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that I go, no, I don't
Yeah.
need this shit. And by the way, I was listening to a whatever video of a doctor I follow, and he just pointed out alcohol is toxic. That's it. It's a poison to your body. We get away with it, got it, because our bodies are amazing, but it wears on you over time. And I went, yeah, that's true. So I quit drinking. Now, if you said to me today, so it's been a couple of years for me. So if you said to me today, so what's the benefits of not drinking? I could not put my finger on it. Like it wasn't profound. I'm not waking up better. I'm not sleeping better. It's all the same, right? Like I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
literally can't describe what not drinking that other than I get my calories from food and I really like to eat. So that's
Love
it.
it. Love it. You can eat more. That's the benefit. I'm
It-
I actually guilty too. I love food as well. Definite foodie. So as we begin to wrap up, Patrick, I wanted to ask you what, you talked a little bit about contribution, and I was just curious, like what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Oh, I think that's it. The legacy I want to leave behind is that, if somebody's reading my eulogy at the front of the room after I've gone on to whatever's next, I want them to be able to say that Patrick was instrumental in my life, that he was a contribution to our community, that he was his wisdom, his guidance, his experience was very supportive of us achieving an outcome. And so if that's some stories that people can share and that
Mhm.
I brightened up their life or lightened up their life, that would be enough for me.
Amazing. Amazing. We're gonna rapid fire through these last ones here.
Okay.
Now, like biggest misconception you're seeing right now with people getting involved in real estate and trying to become successful. Like what's that biggest misconception for like a new investor that's trying to become successful?
That the real estate bubble is going to burst and everything's going to crash to almost zero.
I think I got that one last night, actually. And if you had basically one message, Patrick, to put on a billboard that every investor entrepreneur would see, what would it say? One message on a billboard.
Buy for cash flow long term.
Love it. Love it. And are there any like list maybe three tools, apps, resources, books for the guests that you can't live without in your life, like for business?
You know, for me, and again, I ask similar questions on my podcast, Zach, and it's rare that somebody hasn't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Rare.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a must read book for me. The other must read I think is really kind of beneficial for anybody is The E Myth Revisited by Michael Gruber. And the final one was a big one for me, really hit home. And I read it was Jocko Willink, Extreme Ownership. I
Got
think that should be a must read for everybody. I had my whole team read it. JG, a good friend of mine, Jean-Guy Francoeur, a good friend of mine and partner in many aspects of what we do. But he and I read that together, and after we read it, it was like, and we're good. Like we are we we accept full ownership. We hold ourselves accountable. That book was really great. And some people like to read or not. So Jocko Willink, is a Navy SEAL, top performing, led teams. He's that's his gig, right?
Yeah.
So he shared a lot of stories about I found it interesting. He shared a lot of stories about being in the trenches, Iran, Iraq, running teams, snipering and doing all the things that they do in those kind of situations. But he shared a lot of lessons that he learned about extreme ownership, which is to say, your life is a reflection of you. If you like it, then you're doing some things right. If your life sucks, quit blaming others. Quit blaming the economy. Quit blaming anybody else. Go look in a mirror and say, okay, what do I need to do to change? I am the pointy end of the spear in my life. I am the CEO of my life. I'm going to own it. And if I don't like my results, then who do I need to become to change and get a different result?
That sounds like an amazing book. I've actually heard of it, not read it. Just to
Read
add,
it.
did you ever read the one by David Goggins, like Can't Hurt Me, which is more on like becoming like relentless? I'm sure you might have read that
No,
one.
I haven't. I
No?
haven't. I'm not.
Yeah.
David Goggins is a little too intense for me. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it
he
just
does some
reminded
good
me.
messages.
It
Yeah.
might be similar, just like a different take home message. So I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah.
All right. One of the last sections here, Patrick. I'm gonna list two things, and it's a this or that game. So, would you rather be a buy and hold investor or fix and flip? You got to answer
Buy and
within 10
hold.
seconds. Okay, 10-second answers. Cash flow or appreciation?
Cash flow.
Multifamily or commercial?
No, commercial.
Okay.
Light
Invest.
industrial. I want to qualify it. Commercial's a
Okay.
big one.
Okay. Industrial done. Invest in Canada or the U.S.?
Both.
Okay, good answer. Ontario or Alberta for investing?
Right now, Alberta.
Got it.
No, I'm going to change it. Ontario, because Ontario's getting the shit kicked out of it right now.
Love it. Love it. All right, Patrick. It's been an incredible conversation. For those listening and want to learn more, connect with you, dive into more what you're doing with Rain, where is the best people to reach out to you?
RainCanada.com. And I always, if somebody wants to email me at CEO at Rain Canada, so CEO at REINCanada.com, feel free to do that. I respond to all my emails.
Amazing. Patrick, thanks again for being here today and sharing your wisdom. To everyone listening, take what you learned and apply it, because action is what separates the dreamers from the doers. And make sure you go check out the Everyday Millionaire podcast and Rain for more insights. Until next time, keep pushing forward and making moves in the real estate game. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Zach.